Both. So I think the way we start any discussion of any book is asking the writer what made them write it.
Yeah.
Right.
So the subject of violence itself is linked to my research at university. So that's my topic. It's my, I'm specialized in contemporary Francophone subversive literature. So I couldn't write anything else. So for this novel, I wanted to link, to think about maternity, family, and how everything can go wrong, even when you're trying your best. So that was the subject I wanted to frame. But I wrote the novel not only for the story, but for the aesthetic itself. So that was also the challenge, not only to tell a story, but the way to go into the violent writing itself.
How did you find writing violence like that?
How I did it?
How did you feel while you were writing it? Like where did you find it?
So I tried to put myself into the mom's position, facing very disturbing behaving kids. So, which is not my experience at all, but I could relate it to the character in some ways. So I really tried to put myself in those situations. What would I do facing that kind of violent kids? How do you react and how you keep going with that? So that's the way that I try to get into that violent behavior in a way.
And how about embodying the twins? Like, where did you find that? That's a terrible place to go.
I have 4 kids myself, so I would say that not that they are that extreme, obviously, but I exaggerated a lot, some experience or some point of view that I can imagine that kids can have when they are not socially very skilled, I would say.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's so interesting that you focus your research and academic writing on violence in French literature in particular, right?
Yeah.
You, for one thing, what interested you in monstrosity? Like, when did that start for you?
So I wasn't such a reader when I was young. My little sister was the real reader, and I wasn't reading as much as she was, until I found Stephen King around 11 years old. And then I was like, oh, there are other kinds of books than the children books. And then I was hooked. So I started reading all Stephen King I could find translated in French. And that was the start of my interest in literature. So then after that, I came to classic in French, and I didn't stop reading after that. But the start of my interest in literature was Stephen King. So obviously there's something there.
That's so funny, because I was going to say, like, I love scary books. I love all scary things. And reading Stephen King and V.S. Andrews and Sybil. I remember reading Sybil when I was young, but like the feeling of picking up that book and knowing like it holds things that will keep you up at night. It was reading your book I found very, very much like reading as a young person, which I think is a testament to it. I think it's that it transports you, to a really exciting time of reading as a kid, when you were just devouring it to find out what the terrible thing was going to be.
I was also a huge fan of scary movies. So I was watching it by myself when I was like 13 or something like that, because nobody wanted to watch it with me. So that's in a way, how I built my imagination, I guess. Even if it's not like that in my family or my friends that were around at that point. I was the only one with that dark interest, I guess.
Yeah, it's a thing that you build for yourself.
I guess. I'm sensitive to that.
Yeah. And it makes you look under the bed differently. It makes you look at the closet at night differently.
Yeah, and I would say I'm not afraid of anything. So it's very hard to scare me. So I have a 2 meters python snake at home. So it's like, there are not many things that can scare me. So it's a challenge to scare me, which is always fun to try to find some books or movies that will really move me.
Yeah. Once you've hit that plateau.
Yes, it's very exciting.
But I think it's also a wonderful time to disappear into a scary book, because it's a wonderful book to disappear into. Has your mother read this book?
That's such a cute question. Yes, she did. My mom is a very strong and brilliant woman, scared of nothing. So yeah, she found the book disruptive, but I think she appreciated the writing. And I have to say, I didn't write the book, to provoke my mom. It's more like myself as a mom that I wanted to provoke. So yeah, it's more linked to my own experience of maternity than to put anything on my mom's shoulders.
Yeah. It's so effective. It's so effective in evoking all the questions and all the feelings that come with maternity. And I say that as somebody who has no kids. Like, I've found it that easy to identify with without even understanding maternity. It's very, very effective. It's very direct and visceral.
Thank you.
Anyway, excellent, Marie-Hélène.
Is it my turn?
I think it is.
Some questions? Yay! Your turn to talk. So yeah, I wanted to question you about the process of the translation itself, because sometimes people think that it's just, you can Google translate something and it's the same thing, which is not, of course, the case translating literature. So you are very well recognized author yourself. So what is your creativity in the translation? How is the book yours? Where are you in that book?
Oh, I'm nowhere to be found, except for in the decisions to avoid my own tricks. Like, yeah, you should only see the translator in as much as they're a skill that brings the original as accurately as possible to light. Like, it's a soothing activity, translating, particularly literature, and particularly into your first language. It's almost like a set of rails that you put your car on and you just sort of go along. But as you're going along, you run into areas where you, the writer, would in those circumstances use should have rather than should have, and you go, oh, there's a me trick, and that I'll steer myself off of those rails. Yeah. But I think it also, like, one of the things that I enjoyed so much about the book is the directness of the writing, and my writing is also very similar. And I think, that's a matter of luck. If I was translating a much flowerier book, it would be very different for me.
I see. And so what were the challenges in the translation?
Making sure that it had the same impact. Like, that's the gift of the book, is its impact and the experience of following along, the identifiability of the characters and like keeping the reading experience, I think, intact. So there were things like all of the exclamation points. Exclamation points. Yeah, they're more heavily used in French literature, right? And they do such a weird thing to English literature. So you have to, yeah, you have to learn to translate an exclamation point without including it.
Without the mark itself. I see.
Yeah.
Oh.
But also bringing something that harsh, that brutal, from French into English, and French being this beautiful lyrical language, and English being a little, like, it's shorter, it's 10% shorter, so the sentences are shorter and they hit a little harder. That almost in itself, the brevity of English almost took care of the exclamation points in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and how would you describe the aesthetic of the book, and how did you translate it in English?
Fast, like it's a fast moving book, and that's kind of the thing, is you don't want to slow it down. It's direct, it hits you and then it moves on, and it just chugs on ahead like a machine. And you want to make sure that, nothing is holding it up, while at the same time not speeding it up any faster. So it's a lot of reading back what I'd written to make sure that, to check the experience of the passage.
Yeah. So, and you notice that I'm focusing all the question on more the writing than the story itself, because the book will be probably received as a thriller, but in a way it's true that the story itself is kind of a thriller. But I want to focus also on the writing itself, and that was both of our part to link that writing process into aesthetic. And of course, as a professor in literature, that was interesting too. So
yeah. Well, for the people at home, there's a verb tense in French called the passé simple that is created uniquely for literature. Nobody speaks it in real life. It's just made for books, and English doesn't have its own unique literary verb tense. And your book is not written in passé simple. And like, what kind of a decision in the francophonie is that, to not use the official tense of literature?
Well, more and more, the author I have in mind that are around me are also using the present a lot more than it was before in the more classic literature. It completely changed the way the timeline is built. So the passé simple created a narrative that is completely finished. And especially with this book, you are supposed to follow the step simultaneously. So the present was needed. The story is not finished when you write it and read it. So the present also created that. But now that we're talking about the challenges in the translation. So in French, the twins are talking at the third person singular, which doesn't exist in English. So they talk, instead of saying je, they say on fait ceci. And in oral French, we say on instead of nous, but still, when you write on, it's still a singular technically. So that, for me, that was, it's a one thing. And for when I was writing it, it was also a way to build those twins as a unity. So that couldn't be translated directly for the pronoun, but you were able to translate it through all the articles, like our leg at the same, which is a nonsense, but I guess
Right.
that's how you translate it.
Yeah. And that, yeah, for it, again, for the people at home, like there's in French, we, like in, we is different than on. On, if the sentence goes, on va au magasin or whatever, it sort of represents one goes to the store rather
Yep.
than we go to the store. So the word
Yep.
one, as the twins who believe they are one, is so much more particular to the French. And exactly, in the English, I had to use we, because we don't have another, and one doesn't work because it's too high a register. But yeah, it would be we with, yeah, the singular of, you know, our shirt, or yeah. But yeah, that was a huge consideration once you hit that chapter and realize, like, oh yeah, on is not new.
No, they talk as if they were one person, and they are confused who's who in a way. So that was, I guess, that was one of my question when the book was about to be translated. If you will put as a first person singular, like I do this, and then the reader will have to find which one is talking, because at some point that's how it is in French. You don't know, so who's talking for real, and we are confused as they are, to realize who's talking about what.
Yeah.
So
there's also the weird consideration that when you use we in English, it can be taken to include the reader. If you just say we, I mean, everybody involved is we.
Of course.
Yeah. It's an interesting conundrum.
So what do you think is innovative in the novel? Why did it catch your eye? Why is it not as other books, I would say?
I think I've said all the things that I liked so much about this book, but it really was like the speed with which it caught me. Like just on the first page, I was like, oh yeah, it's
okay.
It is so effective, and so like it's like you're already driving in the car and you're like, get in, I'll explain on the way.
And do you feel like there are not that many books in English that are that provocative?
I haven't seen one in a while.
Really?
Well, maybe I'm not, but I don't read scary books. I watch scary movies, but I don't read all that many scary books.
Aha.
Yeah.
So good. That's going to be a way to disturb the Anglophones public.
Yeah, I really should have a, like, do you encounter scary translations of English books?
Yeah, I don't know, scary. I'm not reading scary novels in a way as monsters, like vampires or things like that are not my thing, but more psychology, monsters. Yeah, like
monsters things.
Yeah, that kind of reading. Yes, I would totally.
And I think there's a certain like Lovecraft Country. I don't know if you're watching that.
Yeah.
But there is a way that literature approaches the monstrousness of humanity, which is what that show is doing through, you know.
Yeah.
However, yeah, I would say actually when I look at my bookshelf, which is right over here, I would say I've probably got, I don't know, about 10 really monstrous books that are like psychological and kind of body creep. But I'm also reading We So Seldom Look on Love right now. Barbara Gowdy, that's super monstrous.
Aha.
Beautiful.
So see, the readers are ready. They can totally handle that book, even if it's disruptive and subversive.